Today we're going to take a look at this absolute sledgehammer of a graphics card from MSI. This is their RTX 3080 Gaming X Trio, and we're going to take a look at things specifically like clock speed and thermal and noise performance. If you are looking for gaming benchmarks, please check my video that I uploaded 2 days ago, which is specifically looking at gaming performance for the RTX 3080 across 1440p and 4K resolution. And in that video, we take a closer look at how the RTX 3080 performs in gaming versus the 2080 Ti, 2080 and other relevant GPUs. The bottom line is that this is the best high-end GPU that you can buy right now, of course when stock permits. But seeing as there is so much interest for the RTX 30 series for good reason, at least for the 3080 that we have here, I figured it was definitely worth taking a look at some individual cards and cooler designs as well when the opportunity arises, especially while we wait for some more stock to arrive. So let's see if this one is worth considering. So first off, I have to give a big thumbs up to the design crew at MSI who have really improved things over the last couple of generations. Not ruined by red outlines or accents, the new Gaming X Trio is completely neutral from front to back, except for this little red fan header that they managed to sneak in. So overall, a really great looking design. One slight disappointment with this card though is the fact that the backplate is actually made of plastic, which is not what you'd typically find on a flagship cooler design. MSI say that it is actually a graphene composite material, and that should boost the thermal properties a bit more than a typical plastic backplate, as backplates also serve to remove a lot of heat from the backside of the PCB, specifically the underside of the GPU, memory, and VRM where there are actually thermal pads. I think we all would have preferred a full metal backplate here. There's a reason that's what they've decided to go with for their more powerful RTX 3090 Gaming X Trio. The total board power for the RTX 3080 Gaming X Trio is 340 watts, which is the same as the Asus TUF OC that we looked at in the launch review, and that's 20 watts more than the Founders Edition. Here that's also delivered across 3 8-pin power connectors at the end of the card, as opposed to the usual 2 8-pins which you might find on most RTX 3080 models. I'll also note that although many RTX 3080 cards I've seen have a shorter PCB and extended heatsink, which will allow air to pass all the way through, the Gaming X Trio has a more conventional approach with the PCB reaching the full length of the card. Here, the hot air from the card will be exhausted down towards the motherboard and PCIe slot, and also towards the front of the card where the logo is. Now, I've had an absolute ton of questions on RTX 3080s and ITX case compatibility. Specifically, what RTX 3080 is the best choice to put in an ITX case, and kind of what ITX case would that be? So fairly loaded questions and not ones that I can kind of answer within a single paragraph. And there really is no simple answer here. Most of the RTX 3080 designs out there are 2.5 slot plus, 300 mils plus, and triple fan designs. They are big cards. The most compact triple fan design that I've seen so far is the XC3 from EVGA, which is barely over 2 slots in thickness, only 111 millimeters in height and 285 millimeters in length. So far, the most compact design overall though is Nvidia's own Founders Edition, which is exactly 2 slots in thickness and only 285 millimeters in length. However, the cooler design does pose some issues for sandwich layout cases like the Ghost S1 and Dan A4. If I had the Founders Edition card, you guys know that is something that I would absolutely test, but I do not. But coming back to the Gaming X Trio, like most RTX 3080 designs, this is what I'd consider to be a pretty beefy card. It's 2.5 slots, 323 millimeters in length, and 140 millimeters in height, with slightly recessed power connectors. ITX cases that can fit this card are mostly around 16 liters and beyond, like the Cooler Master NR200 and the Sliger SM580. Of course, this will have no problem fitting in most mid-towers. Your only concern there would be the front-mounted radiators and fans, and how much clearance you have at the front of the card for your particular build. There's not many reasons that you'd need to disassemble this specific card, but if water blocks are released in the future, and that's something that you are interested in, then disassembly is a fairly easy process. There are several screws on the back plate which connect to the heatsink, and these are all identical, so don't worry about mixing them up. You've also got 4 main screws behind the retention bracket and GPU, and it's best to progressively loosen loosen these one at a time, as opposed to completely removing one of them and moving on to the next one. So revealing the cooler design, we've got 7 heat pipes that make direct contact to the GPU, and then we have cooling plates connected directly to the heatsink which make contact with the VRM and memory chips. We can also see that the mounting pressure between the heatsink and these surface mounted components looks spot on, with a defined imprint on the thermal pads. Now in terms of performance, I found clock speeds for the 3080 Gaming X Trio to average out to around 1930 MHz. This was completely stock with the fans at auto, tested on an open test bench. So that seems pretty good, but it's around 30 MHz lower than the Asus TUF OC, which I've also tested under the same conditions. That starts to make sense when we look at the thermal performance between these two cards, and we can actually see that the MSI Gaming X Trio is configured with a very quiet fan profile. 72 degrees C is definitely a safe level for the GPU to be operating at, and I do respect this approach from MSI because the difference between 60 degrees C and 70 degrees C on your GPU isn't actually going to impact your performance or user experience, but how loud the card is running in your case will be noticeable. So it seems like MSI have gone for a fan profile that gives the GPU the quietest operation while still maintaining a comfortable temperature target. The Asus TUF OC on the other hand runs at a significantly cooler 60 degrees C, and I'd honestly say that this was still within a very quiet range. So to confirm which cooling design is actually better between the two, I brought the fan speed of the MSI card up to meet the same noise level of the Asus TUF OC, which ended up to be almost an identical fan speed. And the results are that the MSI card runs 5 degrees warmer at these same noise levels. So this means that the Asus TUF OC actually has more effective noise and thermal performance overall, and that's surprising seeing as it will be the cheaper card between them. A quick mention on power consumption, it's pretty close between these two cards, only 7 watts between them, which isn't a meaningful difference. Now if you're interested in water cooling down the road, the 3080 Gaming X Trio doesn't have water blocks currently announced for it. However, the 20 series did see water blocks for the Gaming X Trio line, so I'd expect something very similar for the 30 series, especially for how popular these cards will be in comparison. So if you are interested in the RTX 3080 when it eventually comes back in stock, should you consider the Gaming X Trio from MSI? After all, it is their flagship cooler design. Personally, I was kind of expecting much better results compared to what is almost an entry-level model from Asus. I'm not sure what the pricing difference between them will be, but looking at some listings online, it looks like it's around $70 US, and the Gaming X Trio is more comparable to something like the Asus Strix, which I have not tested. At least with no stock available for pretty much any of the 3080 cards right now, you have some time to make your decision and check out some more reviews. There is a lot more content around the corner, so do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. As always, a huge thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.